Projects in context and project environment. That's the topic for this lesson. PRINCE2 claims to work in any organization or commercial relationship, and it can support any delivery method. Now, I will explain what that means in a moment. Let's look at first at organizational context. So what do I mean by that? So first of all, PRINCE2 does not require a specific organizational structure. It does like to have someone, though, who represents the business side of the project, the user side, and supplier side. Let me explain that. So from the business side of view, the business actually provides the project mandate and the governance. They also provide the funding, and we can refer to them, well, let's say as the customer. Then we have the user representation of the user side. They actually will help specify the desired outcomes, and they will most likely use them as well. So they give us the requirements. Then the supplier side, they provide the expertise and the resources to deliver the products, so the knowledge and the skills to do that. And suppliers can be either internal or external. Now, how does a project fit into an organization? Well, see the diagram here. So at the top level, the business is really at the very top level. So that's the high level business management. And you can see then that projects can exist under programs or portfolios, and they can also exist on their own. Now let me explain what I mean by program and portfolio. So what is a program? A program is a temporary, flexible organization. It is created to coordinate a set of related projects. The key word here is a set of related projects, so they all have something in common. So a good example of this would be, let's say if you had a new ERP system and you want to roll this out in 9 countries. So each project would be each country would be a project, and the whole thing together would be called a program. That's the best way to see it. Then we have portfolio. So what's a portfolio? A portfolio is a totality of an organization's investment. So it's a totality of investment. And a portfolio is used to achieve a strategic objective for the organization. So for example, we can have a portfolio of IT projects or a portfolio of property projects and so on. Now I promised you to talk about delivery methods as well. So what are delivery methods? Well, delivery methods refers to how stuff actually gets done. So there are 3 ones which are mentioned, and I will go through them. The first one is linear sequential approach. The second one is iterative and incremental approach. And the third one is the hybrid approach. So let me first start with the linear sequential approach. This means actually doing one delivery step after each other. So a good example of this is a construction site. Let's say you start with the requirements, then you start with to do the design, then you do the application process, you do the foundation, and so on. So one delivery step after each other. Then we look at iterative and incremental approach. This method is often used for creating IT products. So here you repeat the same steps actually in each stage, such as gathering needs, then designing, then building and testing. And then you repeat all those steps in the next iteration as well. And this is also referred to as agile or adaptive approach. And lastly, we have hybrid. So here we have a mix of both linear and iterative and incremental approach. So maybe we can use at the beginning of the project, we use a linear approach to build the framework for a service. And then we can use the iterative approach to build, let's say, a customer portal. So they can both work in a project. And PRINCE2 can use any of these methods, and they can both exist in one project. Now let's talk about sustainability, because that's been added by this version of PRINCE2. More and more businesses now have sustainability targets or goals. And it's good that projects are aware of these. So what's an example actually of a sustainability target or goal? Well, it could be that materials are sourced locally, a certain percentage, let's say 40% of all our materials have to be sourced locally, or that 30% of all our energy must be renewable, or that we must reduce our waste by 50% over the next 2 years. So that's all good examples. And sustainability, of course, works when it makes business sense for the organization, and more that seems to be happening. PRINCE2 also refers to the UN 17 Development Sustainable Goals. You can see it here. You don't need to know this, just to be aware that it is following some recognized guidelines that already exist. Okay, now we can talk about scale for a moment. Now, PRINCE2 claims it can be used for small, medium and large projects or complex projects. And then you're supposed to then tailor PRINCE2 to suit the project scale in different ways. So it gives some ideas on how you can do that. So you can adjust how the project is governed, so how decisions are made. For simpler projects, you can decide on certain roles to be combined. You can decide on to use simpler documentation and maybe not make the project so formal. Now, the smaller the projects are actually, then the more tailoring is required. And there's a small little issue here because it's usually people beginning with project management, well, they're running the small projects. So they don't actually have that knowledge or expertise in order to do that, which is a pity. And that's why they find it then harder to tailor PRINCE2 to suit their project, and they end up having too much documentation or too much formality in the project, and it's not needed. All right, I think I've covered it quite a bit here. So that's it for projects in context and project environment.